Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Sonic Advance 3. In the last part, we finished off pretty much all of Chaos Angel barring the boss fight, getting the final Chaos Emerald in the process, and now it's time for us to actively go finish off the game. All we have left before us is the boss of Chaos Angel itself, as well as the final boss, but there's also two endings for us to get. The breakdown of how to get which one I'll talk about after we finish the boss of Chaos Angel itself, because this is one of those cases where they just take you directly into the final boss after the Chaos Angel boss fight. Also, not for nothing, Chaos Angel probably has my favorite hub world in the game outside of Route 99 because it's actually pretty small to the point which I enjoy. So the boss of Chaos Angel, in order to get the gold medal here, you need to finish this boss fight within 1 minute and 30 seconds. In order to get the silver medal, do so within 2 minutes. The boss here is the Egg Gravity, and this one works a tad differently than most other boss fights in the game. We can't damage Eggman himself, but like the Egg Chaser, the arena can. Namely, if you hit Gemerl's head at the opposite side of the boss, Eggman flies up or down into the spikes that surround the arena, damaging him. At random, the boss can swap which side the weak point is on, which is meant to make you use the chutes at either side of the arena to get onto the other side yourself, jumping or spin dashing into Gemerl from there. But since I'm playing as Cream, I can just send Cheese out after Gemerl's head, and that does the job all the same. Eggman himself can jump occasionally, making the elastic platform the boss takes place on bounce around. This will either lead you into direct contact damage with the boss fight, or in the case you get placed incorrectly, bounce you off the platform directly into the same spikes that you used to damage him, so watch out for that. Worth noting, after you damage him, he also does tend to spin around the platform, moving left and right to try and ram you. You can dodge that by jumping over the entire machine, but I won't lie, it is a pretty uncomfortable feeling jump. That fight sucks if you don't use Cream, but I'd still say the Egg Pinball is the worst boss in the game. And from here, we're gonna get led directly into the final boss fight of the game. Sort of. Like I said, and as we've seen in the prior Sonic Advance games, this game also actively has two endings. But the way that you actively unlock the true ending is a little bit different than earlier entries. Usually it requires just getting all 7 Chaos Emeralds, but there's actively another step if you want to get the true ending in this one in specific. I'll talk more about why in a moment. For right now, welcome to Alter Emerald. This is our final stage for the game, and we start off with our final duel against Gemerl. This is largely the same fight we did back in Cybertrack, but he's actually lost that shield move I mentioned that he has, and gains a new attack where he teleports to the rough center of the screen, and has 6 missiles that will orbit around him. 2 of them at random will impact the ground. You just don't know where it is, so you kind of have to react as you go. Otherwise, this fight's the same as it was there. And I'll say again, Gemerl, pretty solid fight at large, but as you can see, Cheese kind of breaks him. But of course, that's not our actual final boss here. We gotta go against a big old doctor once again for the millionth time, it feels like, at this point in the franchise. The final boss of the game is the Hyper Eggrobo, which honestly is a really cool looking sprite. But as you can see, I'm gonna be kind of breaking it here with Cream. I really should have died just then, honestly. This bot actively does have a pretty complex set of attacks, but I'm gonna save talking about them for when we actively go against him properly with Sonic later on. Because in order to get the normal ending in this game, you just need to beat it no matter what. But in order to get the true ending, you need to beat this final boss with Sonic as your lead character. Anyone can be your tag partner, but Sonic needs to be the character you're actively controlling. For right now, because Cream and Cheese are the destroyer of worlds, it's time for us to take a look at the normal ending that plays in any other instance you defeat this final boss.
You're going to pay for this! Ow!
and thus in the normal ending the day is saved, and I'm assuming the world is restored to not being in 7 separate chunks, but Eggman and Gemerl get away, so there's clearly some loose ends we need to take care of. For the moment, I'm actively going to keep silent throughout the rest of this credit sequence, as the credits theme in Sonic Advance 3, especially once the main jazzy tune picks up, is one of my favorite credits themes in the franchise, and frankly, you all just need to hear it. I'll see you guys after these credits, where we'll meet back in the Chaos Angel Hub world, so I can show you where the final boss is up there.
Congratulations!
Whether or not you get the true or normal ending first, you do unlock the sound test for beating the game, which is nice because, again, this game has really good music. Heading back into Chaos Angel's Hub World with Sonic in the lead, though, it's time for us to go fight the final boss again. With that said, on my first playthrough, I was very afraid they would make me have to refight Egg Gravity before going after the Egg Hyper Eggrobo again. Thankfully, that is not the case. If you go up to where the boss teleporter is for the Egg Gravity, there's actually a pathway that leads past it. That leads you to a special gold ring that leads you right back to Alter Emerald so you can go against the final boss again. Very thankful that's there, because there's some games I've played that would absolutely make me do that entire gauntlet over again. You can go to the final zone from here. Thank you, Omochao. Now stay quiet for the rest of eternity, please. Although honestly, people are a little harsh on you. I love the way that ring looks, by the way. So now that we're going back into Alter Emerald, I am going to have to fight Gemerl again, so along the way while I'm doing that, worth noting, in order to actively get the gold and silver medal here in Alter Emerald, you need to finish both bosses here within 2 minutes and 30 seconds to get the gold, and between that time and 3 minutes to get the silver. Honestly, a surprisingly strict timer compared to a lot of the other boss gold medals, but as we've seen, if you're having issues getting gold medals on certain bosses, just bring in Cream and you'll probably get it, no issue. So the Egg Hyper Eggrobo. The only point you can damage here is Eggman's cockpit, as per usual. But getting high enough to hit it can prove an issue, unless you have Cream as a tag partner, that is, because that version of Cheese can also just demolish this boss fight. Eggman's attacks depend on the position of his two gigantic hands. Sometimes he'll hold them high in the air, moving them back and forth before slamming them down on the ground, temporarily moving 2 of the 4 platforms you're standing on. I think the hands themselves can squish you during this attack, but they'll often just push you into the pit instead. As they rise back up from that attack though, you can jump on them to activate the air necessary to damage Eggman. Heck, in some cases you can even do a hit, land on the second hand, and get a second one in, albeit that's definitely a very tight window. Sometimes he'll keep his hands to the side and launch red orbs out of the center of the mech. These will bounce back and forth across the screen using the hands as pong paddles effectively. This is probably the attack you want to see the most, as you're the safest during it. And the way the orbs bounce around, you can easily jump on top of them as platforms and leap into the boss himself, sometimes several times in that one attack. You can also hold both hands high in the air and rotate them around in circles. That's indicating he's about to try and punch you directly. You can best avoid that in my experience by actively just spin dashing left and right across the platforms, as that keeps you pretty safe largely. You might get hit here and again, but thankfully at least it's not an instant kill. Speaking of that, something I can't quite recall is he has one attack where he bounces his hands up and down along the left and right side of the screen, always keeping at your exact altitude. That's him trying to lead his hands into a crush attack where he slams them both into you. I cannot for the life of me remember if that attack is instant kill, so future me, if you can go and test that, that'd be nice. This fight can definitely be very tense, especially due to the constant threat of bottomless pits below you during the slam attack. But between a generally fun to learn attack pattern and all that, it's probably also my favorite normal ending final boss in the trilogy. Mind you, it helps that Alter Emerald is also a very to-the-point final stage, and there's not just a sudden boss rush against 2 cameo bosses before the final boss in like X Zone and Advance 1. And there's not a full boss rush like there was in Double X Zone in Sonic Advance 2. Like I've said earlier in the LP, there's a couple of stinkers here between the Egg Cube and the Egg Pinball, but Sonic Advance 3 largely has really solid feeling boss fights. That's the Egg Hyper Eggrobo done though, so it's time for us to lead into the true ending. With that said, as usual for Sonic True Endings, we're not quite done yet, are we?
You're going to pay for this!
Sonic, use your tag action and perform an attack with me.
Welcome to the true final boss of Sonic Advance 3 against Super Gemerl, where we actively get to partner up with Eggman. The way this boss fight works is that by holding down the tag action button, you'll charge up Eggman. When he's sparking, you can send him shooting forward, and if you hit Super Gemerl, his weak spot opens up. You can then mash the B button to send Super Sonic dashing forward until you actively hit the weak point. Sometimes you can get 2 shots in, but usually you'll only get 1. Because we're supersonic, we are technically invulnerable in this fight. The main thing Gemerl can do is send you flying backwards or freeze you, just pausing you in space for a while to let your ring total count down. We do have the usual supersonic rules applying here. 50 rings by default, slowly counting down. Make sure you restock with the rings that are along the way. Supersonic can also notably dash left as well as vertically, but you only really want to use the vertical ones to either really avoid some tight attacks or more often than not just to grab some rings to extend your stay in this boss fight. This fight's definitely a really nice set piece, but like the supersonic fights back in Sonic Advance 1 and 2, it's an overall pretty easy fight outside of the potential ring count issues. Like the others, this boss does still have a set of medals to get. Specifically, in order to get the gold medal in this fight, you need to beat it within 3 minutes flat. And in order to get the silver medal, you need to beat this fight within 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Gemerl being able to do this is actively based off of something that Emerald can do in Sonic Battle. In fact, even the music here, I think, is a remix of 2 specific Sonic Battle tracks. But I'll talk more about that whenever I potentially eventually cover Sonic Battle. I'm still not sure how I'd ever structure that, though, because that game structurally just kind of defies how I tend to structure my LPs between how its campaigns are structured as well as just the general gameplay loop being very samey compared to a lot of other fighters I find. In some regards, this might be the hardest supersonic fight of the trilogy, but that's largely because the attacks that stun you in place do so for long enough where actively gaining rings back can be a little bit more of a trial. With that said, they still come out often enough where really this is more of a victory lap than anything, which I'm completely fine with because the process of getting the Chaos Emeralds in this game I'm really not a fan of, as I've said before. That's game! First off, the true ending theme that just played a moment ago is another song I absolutely adore. Again, Sonic Advance 3 has an amazing soundtrack, and honestly, it might be my favorite soundtrack of the three, which is saying something because all three soundtracks are just that good. Sonic Advance 3 is complicated, I find. There's some really cool stuff here. The new tile sets are really good. The boss fights are largely really fun to fight. The soundtrack, like I said, amazing. And the tag system, I think, can be really interesting when it's utilized well, both in terms of how well the player uses it, but also how good the combo is for the character. But then there's the combos that it just feels like it makes the character's overall worse feeling, and I do not understand why they did that. Like I said last part, I believe, I think the tag system really deserves another shot, mostly so we can get a game where maybe all the combos are something that's actively interesting and buffs the character in unique ways, rather than have some combos where characters just have their normal abilities nerfed in such a way that they're either less fun to play or it removes the entire reason you might want to play as them to begin with. The level design is also a bit of a mixed bag here, to put it lightly. There's some good levels in here, but like I've said a few times, most levels seem like they have a hard time picking if they want you going fast constantly, or if they want you to slow down and do some actual platforming within the same level, often depending on the level or route you're taking, within 5 to 10 second bursts. And the pace of that can very easily lead to you getting hit by spikes or enemies that are placed kind of awkwardly, getting frequently crushed by moving blocks, or otherwise getting blindsided by walls or dead ends in ways that just do not feel fun to explore. This is only further emphasized by the Chow Hunt and the random special key placements, making getting the Chaos Emeralds at minimum a run back and forth within the same level awkwardly to get them all on one run, or at most, you replaying the same levels over and over and over again, hunting for the one small area you've missed in an obscure location for a Chow, and it just sucks the soul out of you. I don't think this is a bad game, I feel I should state, but a lot of its choices frustrate me in ways that many other 2D Sonic games that came before and after it just do not. I have a lot of nostalgia for this as well as Advance 2 because I played them just so young, but if I'm going to recommend an Advance game to play, it's either going to be Advance 2 if you like the high speed of that, or just the generally solid platforming of Advance 1 at large. I think they're just easier games to get into. Heck, I'd probably rather replay the mids and highs of Sonic 4 Episode 1 and 2, as well as the 2D stages of Forces, before revisiting and doing another complete Chaos Emerald run of this game, honestly, because I just enjoy the level designs there generally more. I will say, though, I don't think this is Dimp's worst outing for Sonic. I think largely that's probably Lost World 3DS, if only because there's parts of that game that are a lot more confounding, especially considering the Wii U version handled those sections largely better. But I'll save my thoughts on that for when I eventually tackle both versions of Lost World at some point in the far future. Off the top of my head from the new LP list I wrote, I think the next time we're visiting Sonic, we're either tackling Knuckles Chaotix or Sonic 4 Episode 1, just to stick with some more of the 2D entries before I eventually go back for Sonic Adventure 2, but I don't quite recall off the top of my head. But with that, I'm going to need to end this LP off here. Thank you guys for watching, have a great night, take care, and I'll see you guys next Let's Play, whatever that may be. See you guys then.